Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and thank you, Stanley Wong, for that speech. The title of his speech was Facing Life's Challenges, and the speech title in terms of the project in the book was Persuade with Power. It's really important as a technique that we all learn to persuade with power, because if you can persuade your audience, you will have a great deal of influence over them. And it's also a leadership characteristic that's really important if you want to be a good leader that's effective. The primary purpose of the speech was to influence all of us as listeners in terms of how we think about something, how we think about a particular behavior, and to influence us to adopt whatever it was that Stanley was suggesting. In this case, he was talking about something he called the inner transformation technique. And in terms of persuading us to adopt this technique, we can do this by inspiring our audience, convincing them to do something, or some sort of call to action. All the issues that Stanley brought up, I was inspired to change. So that was really effective in terms of selecting behaviors and thought processes that we've probably all had and using those as examples. Your solution also that you offered made perfect sense. It's very easy to assume that it's the world out there that is wrong and we are right and the world needs to change and everything will be better, but we have very little control over what the rest of the world is doing. I think that in terms of the call to action portion, I will definitely utilize your techniques. In terms of improvement, this speech was much improved from speeches that I've seen in the past. You're moving on to your number 10 next speech, hopefully very soon, and I think there were some notes on the table that you were looking at, although you didn't use them throughout the speech, you relied on having them there. And this, I mean, who am I to say don't use notes? It's my biggest challenge. I'm impressed by everyone who doesn't, but definitely practice maybe moving away from the lectern next time, because I know you were relying on taping some items up here, but just expanding out and letting them go, especially with a speech that's so personal and something you're so well connected and familiar with. I was not able to identify the layout of your speech. There were several strategies that are offered in speech number 9, and I couldn't figure out which one you were using or if you were using any of the strategies they laid out. So something that's a bit clearer in that regard for number 10. And one thing though in terms of improvement is the articulation was excellent. I've heard, painfully overheard so many people commenting that your articulation, and I just think if you were listening, it was so much better, this speech. And so if you're focusing on that, you're doing a great job, because I noticed much better articulation in some of the words that you were using. One important thing to remember when you're going to persuade people is you need to be trustworthy. We need to trust you as a conveyor of this information. And I want to just say that you're a very accomplished person, that it's hard to imagine dealing with the issues you talked about, and your use of personal stories was a really effective technique. We trust you and believe it works just from knowing you. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.